Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've got a special one today. I wanted specifically to make a video about obtaining password hashes, specifically for their use and attackers conducting pass the hash attacks. Now, a password hash is a string that is generated by running a password, your password, through a one-way cryptographic function, meaning that it scrambles and saves your password in a way that can't be decrypted. And on Windows, these hashes are saved in the Security Accounts Manager database, as well as in memory by the local security authority subsystem service. Now, if an attacker is successfully able to dump the SAM database or the LSASS process, they can extract and actually use those hashes to authenticate as a legitimate user without ever knowing the actual password. And in this video today, I want to demonstrate how dumping the contents of the LSASS process can give us access to hashes that we can use to move laterally. And in the second half of this video, I give security recommendations and demonstrate how PAM tools are uniquely solving this problem. So in this attacker scenario, we have a domain with 3 machines, one of which is a workstation computer. There's also a component server, and we also have a domain controller. This is just my home lab, but essentially in this attack, we are the attacker from Kali Linux, and we have compromised an account on this workstation computer, and our goal is to try to move laterally to this domain controller. And the reason we want to get on this domain controller is because it houses all the services like Active Directory, which will give us the ability to really take over this entire environment. And so how we're going to move laterally as the attacker from this workstation computer to the domain controller is to try and dump the contents of LSASS on the workstation computer that we compromised. And we're going to see if there's specifically any password hashes on this machine of domain admins that joined. And if we can get their password hashes, we can do a pass the hash attack and be able to authenticate to the domain controller. And in this scenario, I've compromised a local admin account on the workstation computer, and we've got a shell with evil Windows remote management. Now, in a previous video where I simulate a cyber attack, I dump LSASS, but have to do so by remotely connecting to the compromised machine with RDP. I have to disable Windows Defender, and then ultimately I'm able to dump the LSASS process. This is not entirely ideal from an attacker perspective because both of these steps are quite loud and they generate logs that are pretty clearly visible when someone goes in to see what's going on. But if we go to GitHub, there's a pretty cool tool that can be used to dump the LSASS process without triggering Windows Defender, and it's this tool called NativeDump. Now, NativeDump comes in different versions, and the version that I specifically use that still hasn't been detected by Windows Defender is called NimDump. And how these tools work is that they're coded in languages that aren't as commonly used in malware, like Nim, for example, and this is able to bypass Windows Defender. And once I compile the code from GitHub, I get a nice Windows executable that I renamed to calculator.exe to further avoid detection. And what we're going to do with this exe file is upload it to the target machine, run it, and it should give us a file that actually has the output of the hashes that are on the target machine. Okay, so now going back to our evil Windows remote management shell, what I can do is upload calculator.exe. Make sure I spell that right. And this is going to upload the compiled executable file to the target machine. Then after that, to get our dump file, we can do /calculator.exe-r-o, and then we're going to name the output file document.docx. And I'm naming it this, again, to just further avoid detection. Okay, so it said that our output file generated correctly, and to confirm that we can do dir, and we can see our calculator.exe that ran, and it gave us this output file, cleverly named document.docx. And now what I'll do is get this output file onto our computer by doing download document.docx. And while that's downloading, I wanted to take a second to mention that the entire time that we compromised the Windows computer and the entire time that we dumped the LSASS process, Windows Defender was fully running on the target, as we can see here. And typically, dumping LSASS will be blocked and flagged by Windows Defender since it's a pretty common attacker technique. So this tool on GitHub that allowed us to dump LSASS without triggering Windows Defender is a pretty big deal. Okay, so I downloaded that document.docx output file that was on that target Windows machine. I downloaded it to Kali Linux, and then I'm actually going to move it from Kali Linux over to a separate Windows attacker machine that I have because I want to use Mimikatz to extract those password hashes from the output file. So what I typed out here is that we're creating a mini dump, secure LSA mini dump, and then the path to where that document.docx file is on my computer. And then if we do secure LSA logon passwords, that should give us the passwords from that target machine. So let's see. All right, and so this is the output. And if we scroll up far enough, we can see here that there appears to be a domain admin account, the username domain admin test, and right here we've got his NTLM hash that we're now going to use in a pass the hash attack. Now our goal, like I said, is to move laterally to the domain controller, and what we can do right from Mimikatz itself is run a pass the hash attack. And to do this, I'm going to type secure LSA, I'm going to do path, the user, which is domain admin test, the domain, which is actually just the IP address of the domain controller, the NTLM hash, which I've copied and can quickly paste here, and then we're going to do /run cmd.exe to give us a command prompt shell. Okay, so this has spawned us a CMD session impersonating the domain admin that we compromised on the domain controller. And even though it doesn't show that when we do who am I, because it still shows the name of the machine and user of the attacker computer that we are on, what we can do to confirm that we're actually impersonating the domain admin is try to access a remote admin share over the network by doing dir //192, the IP address of the domain controller, C, and then the $. And since we have access to the network admin share, we are successfully impersonating the domain admin. Now, as another example of pass the hash, if we want an interactive shell as the domain admin on the domain controller, we can use WMI from here in Mimikatz to enable Windows remote management, which isn't, of course, the quietest of attack methods, but for demonstration purposes, we'll get the job done. And what we can do is type out this command, which is going to enable Windows remote management on the firewall on the domain controller. And now going back to Kali Linux, we can use evil Windows remote management and that password hash once again to pass the hash over and get us a shell on the domain controller as a domain admin. Okay, so that was a pass the hash attack. And I think what I'm trying to get at with this video is that no amount of strong password policy, like having long and complex passwords or ensuring the passwords aren't reused, none of that is going to matter if attackers can extract your password hashes from memory. And with evolving techniques, as I showed by that GitHub tool that bypassed EDR to dump LSASS, it can get increasingly challenging to monitor for this activity. Now, a couple security recommendations off the bat that anyone with Windows workstations or servers can do to prevent an attack like this is to enable Credential Guard and run as PPL. And run as PPL will protect LSASS from tampering or memory access, so ensuring that this setting is on is very important. You can go to the registry editor, you go to HKey local machine, current control set, control, LSA, and then from here you can right click run as PPL, modify, and switch that to 1 to ensure that it's on. And then additionally, for even more security, there's something called Credential Guard, which fully isolates LSASS in a secure container. And Credential Guard uses virtualization-based security to run LSASS in a hardware isolated environment. So even if an attacker compromises the operating system, they can't dump credentials from LSASS memory. And again, this is another important setting to have on in your environment. And just as a bonus, since in this attack we compromised admin credentials, organizations may find further satisfaction with using a privileged access management tool. And with Delinea, for example, we can upload our domain admin accounts so that they're only available to users in Delinea that need access to them. Now, the password hashes are still stored the same way on the machine, but with a feature like check-in, check-out, for example, Delinea automatically changes the password of domain admin accounts after every use, significantly reducing the window of opportunity for attackers to reuse stolen credentials and pass the hash attacks. And even if an attacker still somehow manages to compromise a domain admin account, Delinea has session monitoring to see exactly what was done when that account was being used. And this can be very helpful in catching persistence methods that attackers deploy while they have access to privileged accounts. So while extracting password hashes from memory, bypassing Windows Defender, and running past the hash attacks are valid techniques that an attacker could use, they can also be defended against with setting the proper Windows configurations and with additional tools if that seems necessary. Okay, so I had a lot of fun with this video. I keep being able to use different red team tactics, and I continue to really enjoy simulating attacks and understanding how to defend against them. I think it's pretty important to be aware of password hashes and the security implications behind that. And with this channel, I want to keep putting out better videos. Hopefully this was interesting, entertaining. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if you could share it, like the video, subscribe, it goes a long way. And right now I am looking for a full-time opportunity in cybersecurity. So if this kind of thing, knowing how to simulate attacks, knowing how to protect infrastructure, if this is at all useful for you and you're hiring or you know someone that's hiring, please let them know. And again, thank you for watching. I hope this was entertaining, and I can't wait to keep learning more and putting out more videos. And yeah, that's everything I have, and I will see you guys in the next one.